Chicken and I are both masters at what we do. In karate, I'm number one.
The scene, a Hong Kong airport. The situation. The police are closing in on a murder suspect who is attempting to flee the country. In a desperate attempt, the suspect grabs a hostage from the crowd, a well-dressed woman. As the suspect and his captive attempt to leave, suddenly... This is our, and much of the world's introduction to Cynthia Rothrock, a black belt several times over in multiple martial arts forms and wushu forms and weapons champion. Together with Michelle Yeoh in 1985's Yes Madam, they would usher in a brief era of women-centric action films that would more or less dominate the scene in Hong Kong for the next few years. Yes Madam is an interesting film on its own, being part buddy cop action movie and part slapstick comedy. How much mileage this gets will depend on the person, but personally I think it's pretty good, if not a little hit and miss.
Bye bye!
The comedy feels a bit forced, but the action... Grade A. Having formed the D&B Films Company in 1983, producer Dixon Poon and action star Sammo Hung wanted to start pumping out trendy films to great profit. Sammo saw the work his close friend Jackie Chan was doing on Police Story and wanted to go in a similar vein. The basic idea was to ape the aforementioned buddy cop concept from films like Dirty Harry, Freebie and the Bean, and 48 Hours, while blending it with the Hong Kong action comedy style made popular recently by Sammo Hung himself and Jackie Chan in films like Winners and Sinners, Wheels on Meals, and Project A. For its stars, Hung liked the idea of using real martial artists, people who knew what they were doing. However, Poon had his eye on former Miss Malaysia Michelle Yeoh, who was then going by Michelle Khan. She first appeared in commercials, like this one featuring Jackie Chan, and then had a small role in D&B Films' first major feature, Owl vs. Bumbo. Here Michelle plays a school teacher trying to teach inner-city kids the system is left behind life lessons. This was followed by another role in Twinkle Twinkle Lucky Stars, with both films starring Sammo Hung. While much of the film's narrative focus would center on Michelle, Sammo would get his way in casting the other star in Yes Madam by having D&B Films reach out to various martial arts schools. As it happened, Cynthia Rothrock was training with the West Coast demonstration team under Ernie Reyes Sr. Told they were looking for the next Bruce Lee, every member sought a role. But it was 5'3" Cynthia Rothrock who most impressed the producers and Sammo Hung. Yes Madam follows two main plots, which eventually converge into an action-packed finale. First involves three petty criminals, two small-time thieves and a counterfeiter, who inadvertently steal a microfilm that would incriminate a big-time triad boss named Tin. Michelle Yeoh is a Hong Kong detective whose mentor was going to pass on the microfilm before being murdered. Rothrock is a Scotland Yard detective also on the case from abroad. The two form an alliance to take down Tin before he can find out who has the microfilm and destroy it. The buddy cop aspect is sort of a Brannigan meets Dirty Harry story. The movie opens with Michelle Yeoh arresting a pervert for flashing in a public library and then immediately changes into a Hong Kong style version of the famous bank robbery scene from the original Dirty Harry. This is complete with Yeoh standing over a suspect and doing an obvious variation of the
"You've got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky?"
speech. Of course, Michelle Yeoh doesn't intimidate the same way a grizzled Clint Eastwood does, so the guy actually goes for his weapon here. Now they switch things up a bit in that Michelle's character is well regarded in the department. Rothrock is treated as an outsider, and probably rightfully so. She's incredibly hardcore, hesitating very little before attempting to beat a confession out of a suspect. Yes Madam was shot at a breakneck pace, with little thought given to tone and narrative focus. Sammo brought in his friend and fellow Chinese Opera Academy alumni Corey Yun to direct. And though the story might not resonate, Yun brings it with the action goods. The fights are quick and brutal, realized in the style Chan and Hung had been perfecting since the late 70s. Wide shots for the geography, tight for wind-ups, and medium for explosive hits.
We do hit each other like mad, and we do hit each other all the time, but they were teaching me, you know, the movements, because if you were fighting on the street, you would go straight there. But if you were doing it for the movie, you had to go around.
Michelle Yeoh's years spent in ballet and her dedication to her work, meaning sometimes 8 hours a day training, result in quick but flowing movement and graceful flexibility. Rothrock is seen here as a powerhouse with strong kicks, as well as her own unique flexibility, which she would later use as sort of her signature in her subsequent films. And it's just cool to see a badass lady with a bow staff. Not that Asian cinema has made a rarity of seeing badass women before, but it's nice to see them not be objectified in any real sense here, and just let them kick ass. Being less of a perfectionist than Jackie Chan, Hung was able to beat Police Story to the theaters by nearly a month. Yes Madam managed to be quite the surprise success. Both Michelle Yeoh and Cynthia Rothrock's careers also took off from here, and D&B films were well prepared to capitalize on that. Its comedy may leave something to be desired, but when it works, the action really carries the film to great heights. I love the little details, like Cynthia burning her hand when she's trying to look tough by crushing a cigarette, or that moment when stuntman Dick Way kicks Rothrock's legs and then feels bad for hurting her. Since this one was pumped out on the cheap, there's no original music, as was sometimes the case with Hong Kong flicks. But here it's especially egregious, as there are snippets from, of all movies, John Carpenter's Halloween. Yes Madam has all these little things, but it also delivers when it needs to. So I'd say definitely try and track this one down.
Take it up!